The gold-embossed invitation arrived on the same day Elena discovered she was carrying the Lycan King's heir, and it was addressed to the former fiancé of Alpha Marcus Blackwood. Elena's hands trembled as she held the heavy cardstock, the morning light streaming through the palace windows catching the elaborate script. Her other hand pressed against her still flat stomach, where the royal physician had confirmed new life just an hour before. The Blackwood Pack cordially invites you to celebrate the union of Alpha Marcus Blackwood and Serena Hayes. Serena, her former best friend. The woman who had stood beside her at that disastrous engagement ceremony 3 years ago, whispering comfort while secretly coveting everything Eleanor had. She crumpled the invitation and threw it across the room. Bad news? The deep voice made her spin around. Damien Volkov stood in the doorway of their private chambers, arms crossed over his broad chest, silver eyes tracking the fallen paper with mild curiosity. Even after 3 years as his queen, the sight of him still stole her breath. Tall, dark-haired, with the kind of presence that made entire rooms fall silent. The Lycan king who hadn't taken a mate in over a century. Until her. It's nothing. She moved to retrieve the invitation, but Damien was faster. Lycan speed wasn't something she'd ever get used to. He smoothed the paper and read it, his expression unchanging. Then he looked at her with something like amusement. Marcus Blackwood, the fool who rejected you. The same. We'll attend. Eleanor's heart dropped. Damien, no. I have no desire to… To what? To let them see what you've become? He crossed to her, cupping her face in his hands. His touch was always surprisingly gentle for a man who could kill with a single blow. 3 years ago, they threw you away like garbage. They called you wolfless, weak, unworthy. The memories hit her like physical blows. Standing on that ceremonial platform in her white dress, Marcus's cold eyes as he spoke the words of rejection in front of 300 guests. The gasps, the whispers. Her own father refusing to meet her gaze as she fled. I remember, she whispered. Then let them see the truth. Damien's thumb traced her cheekbone. Let them see the queen of the Lycan kingdom. Let them see your wolf. Her wolf stirred at his words, that magnificent silver creature that had slumbered inside her for 22 years before finally awakening. The curse on her bloodline had kept her dormant, made Eleanor appear as nothing more than a human among wolves. Only Damien's blood, ancient Lycan blood, carrying magic as old as the moon itself, had broken the chains. They don't deserve to see her, Elena said. No, but you deserve to show them. She pulled away, walking to the window that overlooked the Lycan capital. Below, the city sprawled in elegant stone and silver spires, a kingdom that had accepted her when her own pack had not. Here she was loved, respected. Here her silver wolf was celebrated as a sign of blessed fortune, not viewed with suspicion or fear. The thought of returning to Blackwood territory made her stomach clench, though whether from nerves or her newly discovered pregnancy, she couldn't tell. The pregnancy. She needed to tell him. But she knew exactly what would happen. Damien would wrap her in cotton and cancel everything. He'd become insufferably protective, assign guards to her every movement, and absolutely forbid her from attending any event that might cause stress. And maybe that's what she wanted. An excuse not to go. But another part of her, the part that had survived 3 years of exile, that had walked into forbidden Lycan territory during a storm that should have killed her, that had faced down a century-old king and made him fall in love with her, that part wanted Marcus to see exactly what he had thrown away. Tell me about that night, Damien said, coming to stand behind her. The rejection. You know the story. I know the facts. I want to know how it felt. Eleanor closed her eyes. She hadn't spoken of this in years. Had buried it so deep she sometimes forgot the details. But they surfaced now, vivid and painful. I was so happy that morning, she began. I'd known Marcus since we were children. Our families had arranged the match when we were 12, but I genuinely believed we were in love. He was kind to me, or at least I thought he was. He said all the right things, made all the right promises. And then? The ceremony started normally. We stood before the elders, exchanged the traditional vows. Then came the part where I was supposed to present my wolf, to prove I was worthy of becoming Luna. Her voice hardened. But my wolf wouldn't come. No matter how hard I tried, she stayed silent, hidden. I didn't know then about the curse, didn't understand why I was different. I just knew that something was wrong with me. Damien's hands settled on her shoulders, warm and steady. Marcus's face. I'll never forget it. The disgust, the betrayal, as if I had lied to him on purpose. He declared me wolfless in front of everyone, every alpha, every elder, every member of both our packs. He said I had deceived him, that I was unfit to be a Luna, that he wouldn't tie himself to a woman who was barely more than human. And your family? My father disowned me on the spot, said I had shamed our bloodline. She laughed bitterly. The irony. Our bloodline was the problem, that ancient curse that someone placed on my ancestors centuries ago. But he didn't know, or maybe he did and couldn't face it. Where was Serena during this? Holding my hand, crying, telling me how sorry she was. Eleanor's jaw tightened. I found out later she'd been sleeping with Marcus for months. She knew exactly what was going to happen. She just wanted a front row seat to watch me fall. Damien turned her to face him, his silver eyes blazing with cold fury. In moments like this, she understood why the Lycan king was feared across every territory. His anger was a physical force, a weight in the air that made her wolf want to submit. Then we go, he said, not because they deserve our presence, but because you deserve their reckoning. Damien, I will stand beside you, my queen. They will see what they discarded. They will see the power they could never have appreciated. And they will spend the rest of their miserable lives knowing they created their own worst enemy. Eleanor felt her wolf rise within her, silver and fierce, suddenly eager for the confrontation. For 3 years she had hidden from her past, built a new life and tried to forget. But the wound had never truly healed. It had only scarred over, waiting for the right moment to be torn open again. Maybe this was that moment. Maybe she needed to face them, Marcus with his cruelty, Serena with her betrayal, her father with his cowardice, to finally be free. Fine, she said. We'll attend. Damien smiled, and it was the smile of a predator anticipating the hunt. Good. Now, is there anything else you'd like to tell me? Her heart stuttered. What do you mean? You've been distracted all morning, restless, and you've touched your stomach exactly 7 times in the past 10 minutes. His gaze dropped to her midsection. Is there something I should know? Damn Lycan perception. Eleanor hesitated. The words sat on her tongue, heavy with possibility. She could tell him now, watch his face transform with joy and protectiveness, let him make this decision for her. Or she could keep it secret just a little longer, long enough to face her past without his hovering interference. I'm nervous, she said, which wasn't entirely a lie. The thought of seeing them again after all this time. Damien studied her for a long moment, and she had the uncomfortable feeling he wasn't fooled. But he only nodded. You have nothing to fear. You are no longer the broken woman who stumbled into my territory 3 years ago. You are Elena Volkov, queen of the Lycan kingdom, bearer of a silver wolf of ancient bloodline. He pressed a kiss to her forehead. And anyone who dares to disrespect you will answer to me. She leaned into him, letting his strength settle her nerves. He didn't know about the baby. She would tell him, eventually, after the wedding, after she had shown Marcus and Serena and everyone else exactly what they had lost. Let them see what they discarded. For the first time in 3 years, Elena found herself looking forward to it. Wanting to see what would happen next, subscribe to this channel to get to listen to more of our upcoming exciting stories. Click on the subscribe button now. Thank you. Chapter 2. The convoy of black vehicles wound through the mountain pass like a serpent of polished obsidian, each one bearing the silver crest of the Lycan kingdom. Elena watched the familiar landscape unfold through the tinted windows, her heart beating a rhythm of dread and anticipation. 3 years. 3 years since she had fled these mountains with nothing but the clothes on her back and the shattered remnants of her dignity. Now she returned with a royal entourage, a king at her side, and a secret growing in her womb. "You're quiet," Damien observed from beside her. "I'm remembering." The trees thinned as they descended into Blackwood territory, and Elena caught her first glimpse of the pack compound. It looked smaller than she remembered. The great stone manor that had once seemed so imposing now appeared almost quaint compared to the Lycan palace. The training grounds where she had struggled to keep up with other wolves, the ceremonial hall where her dreams had died, all of it compressed into a space that could fit inside their private gardens. How did this place ever hold so much power over me? The gates swung open, and their convoy rolled through. Pack members lined the main road, drawn by curiosity and the undeniable pull of Lycan authority. Eleanor could see their faces through the window, confusion, suspicion, and the particular wariness that came from being in the presence of power far greater than their own. "Ready?" Damien asked. "No." She straightened her spine. "But that's never stopped me before." The vehicle stopped, and one of their guards opened the door. Damien stepped out first, his presence hitting the crowd like a physical wave. Eleanor heard the collective intake of breath, watched pack members instinctively lower their gazes. The Lycan king was legend made flesh, and even those who had never seen him knew to fear what he represented. Then Damien extended his hand to her. Eleanor took it and emerged into the afternoon light. The silence that followed was absolute. She had dressed deliberately for this moment, a gown of deep sapphire that hugged her figure before flowing into an elegant train. Her dark hair swept up to reveal the claiming mark on her neck, Damien's mark, the symbol of their bond. Diamonds glittered at her throat and ears, but the most striking adornment was her own transformation. Gone was the thin, pale girl who had fled in disgrace. In her place stood a woman of power and grace, her posture regal, her eyes holding the quiet confidence of someone who had faced death and emerged victorious. And beneath that polished exterior, her silver wolf prowled with barely contained energy, finally free to be seen. Is that Elena Vance?" The whisper came from somewhere in the crowd, followed by a ripple of shocked murmurs. "It can't be." Eleanor was wolfless. "But look at her. That's definitely her face. The Lycan Queen. That's impossible." Eleanor let the whispers wash over her, drawing strength from each one. She had imagined this moment countless times during her darkest nights. The looks of disbelief, the stammered confusion, the dawning realization that they had made a terrible mistake. The reality was even sweeter than her fantasies. Damien tucked her hand into the crook of his arm and led her forward. The crowd parted before them like water before a ship's prow. Eleanor kept her chin high and her expression serene, meeting the eyes of those who dared to look at her. She recognized many of them, the beta who had called her a disgrace, the elder who had suggested she be cast out of wolf society entirely, the young women who had whispered and giggled behind her back. None of them could hold her gaze for more than a moment. They reached the manor steps, where the welcoming party waited. Eleanor's eyes found Marcus immediately. Alpha Marcus Blackwood stood rigid at the top of the stairs, his handsome face frozen in an expression of absolute shock. He was still tall, still broad-shouldered, still possessing the dark good looks that had once made her heart flutter. But now she saw him clearly, the cruelty in the set of his jaw, the calculation behind his blue eyes, the weakness that masqueraded as strength. Beside him, clutching his arm with white-knuckled desperation, stood Serena. Her former best friend had changed too, though not for the better. The years had sharpened her features, added a brittleness to her beauty that spoke of constant anxiety. Her smile was fixed in place like a mask, but her eyes darted between Eleanor and Marcus, with barely concealed panic. Good, Eleanor thought. Be afraid. King Damien. Marcus descended the steps, his recovery admirable if not complete. We are honoured by your presence. Welcome to Blackwood territory. Alpha Marcus, Damien's voice carried the weight of centuries. We received your invitation. My queen wished to attend. The emphasis on queen was subtle but unmistakable. Marcus's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Elena. He turned to her and something flickered in his eyes, something that looked almost like longing. It's been a long time. Has it? I hadn't noticed. The lie was smooth as silk, and she enjoyed the flash of hurt that crossed his face. Behind him, Serena made a small sound of distress. You look different, Marcus continued, his gaze travelling over her with an intensity that made Damien's arm tense beneath her fingers. I am different. 3 years as a Lycan queen will do that. Elena smiled, and it was the smile of a woman who held all the cards. Congratulations on your upcoming wedding, Marcus. Serena. She nodded to her former friend. I hope you'll be very happy together. The words were poison wrapped in politeness, and everyone knew it. Please, Serena stepped forward, her voice strained. Let us show you to your quarters. You must be tired from your journey. How thoughtful. Eleanor allowed herself to be led inside, feeling the weight of hundreds of eyes on her back. Let them stare. Let them whisper. Let them choke on their regret. Their quarters were the finest guest suite the manor had to offer, though it paled in comparison to their palace chambers. Eleanor stood at the window watching the frantic activity below as pack members prepared for tomorrow's ceremony. He couldn't take his eyes off you. She turned to find Damien lounging in a chair, perfectly at ease despite the tension of their arrival. Marcus, you mean? His wolf recognized something. I could see it in his posture, smell it in his sweat. Damien's silver eyes gleamed. He's regretting his choice. 3 years too late. Is it? Damien rose and crossed to her, his movements fluid and predatory. You're tied to me now, bound by mate bond and marriage and something far older than either. But I wonder, if he had not rejected you that day, if he had claimed you as his Luna, would you be standing here now? Eleanor met his gaze without flinching. I would be dead. Or worse, I would be her. She gestured toward the window, where Serena could be seen directing servants with sharp, anxious commands. Trapped in a loveless marriage with a man who sees women as possessions, my wolf still dormant, my potential unrealized. You saved me, Damien. Not from Marcus, but from the life I would have had without you. Something softened in his expression. You saved yourself. I merely provided the opportunity. Then we saved each other. He pulled her close and she breathed in his scent, pine and winter and something uniquely him. Her wolf purred with contentment, recognizing her mate, her king, her home. The rehearsal dinner is in 2 hours, Damien murmured against her hair. Are you prepared? I've been preparing for 3 years. The great hall was decorated in silver and white, Serena's colours, though Eleanor privately thought the effect was more sterile than elegant. Pack members filled the long tables, their conversations dying to whispers as she and Damien entered. They had been given seats of honour, a diplomatic necessity that clearly grated on both Marcus and Serena. Eleanor found herself positioned directly across from the head table, with an unobstructed view of the couple whose union she was supposedly here to celebrate. The meal passed in a blur of forced pleasantries and curious stares. Eleanor ate little, too aware of her churning stomach, whether from pregnancy or nerves, she still couldn't tell. Damien remained a steady presence at her side, charming when necessary but never letting her forget his attention was always on her. It was between courses that she noticed Marcus watching her. Not the quick glances she had caught throughout the evening, but a fixed, burning stare that made her wolf bristle with unease. When their eyes met, he didn't look away. Instead, he rose from his seat. "If you'll excuse me for a moment," he announced to no one in particular. Eleanor felt rather than saw him approach. He stopped beside her chair, close enough that she could smell his cologne, the same scent he had worn 3 years ago, the scent that had once made her heart race and now only made her stomach turn. "Eleanor, might I have a word? In private?" Every instinct screamed at her to refuse, but something else, the wounded girl who still lived somewhere inside her, who still needed answers, made her nod. "Of course." Damien's hand caught hers beneath the table. His expression remained neutral. But she felt the question through their bond, the concern laced with something darker. "I'll be fine," she sent back. "I need this." He released her, though his eyes followed her as she rose and allowed Marcus to lead her toward the terrace. The night air was cool against her skin, a welcome relief from the oppressive atmosphere inside. Marcus led her to a secluded corner, away from the windows and prying eyes. The moon hung heavy above them, nearly full, and Elena felt her wolf stir in response to its call. "Thank you for agreeing to speak with me," Marcus began, his usual arrogance subdued. "I know I have no right to ask anything of you." "You're correct. You don't." He flinched at her coldness but pressed on. "Elena, I need you to understand what happened 3 years ago, the things I said, the way I treated you. I was wrong. I was so terribly, unforgivably wrong. Is this an apology?" She kept her voice flat, refusing to give him anything. "It's more than that." He stepped closer and she saw desperation in his eyes. "Since the moment you walked through those gates, my wolf has been going insane. He recognizes something in you, something I was too blind or too stupid to see before. This pull between us. There is no pull between us, Marcus. You can't feel it. This connection, this... What I feel," Eleanor interrupted, her voice cutting like ice, "is contempt. What I feel is the satisfaction of watching you realize what you threw away. But attraction? Connection? No. Whatever your wolf is sensing, it isn't reciprocated." Marcus ran a hand through his hair, agitation making his movements jerky. "I made a mistake, the worst mistake of my life. You were supposed to be mine, Elena. My Luna, my mate. I was never supposed to be yours," she laughed, and the sound held no warmth. "I was supposed to be exactly where I am, queen of the Lycan kingdom, mate to a king who saw my worth when you could only see my weakness. Mother to..." She stopped, the words catching in her throat. She had almost said it, almost revealed the secret she was keeping even from Damien. Marcus's eyes widened. "Mother to what? Elena, are you..." "That's none of your concern." She took a step back, suddenly desperate to end this conversation. "Go marry Serena, Marcus. Have your little Luna, and your little pack, and your little life. I came here for closure, and I've found it. You're exactly the man I always feared you were, one who only wants what he can't have." "Elena, please." He grabbed her arm, his grip too tight. "Give me another chance. I know I don't deserve it, but if you could just... release my wife." The voice came from the shadows, cold as death itself. Marcus's hand dropped as if burned, and Elena turned to see Damien emerge from the darkness. His eyes glowed silver in the moonlight, and his wolf was barely contained beneath his human skin. "King Damien," Marcus struggled to compose himself. "I meant no disrespect. We were merely... I know exactly what you were doing." Damien's voice was soft, almost gentle, and somehow that made it more terrifying. "I felt every word through our bond, every pathetic attempt at seduction, every desperate grab at something that will never be yours." He moved to Eleanor's side, placing a possessive hand on her lower back. She leaned into him instinctively, drawing strength from his presence. "Your ceremony is tomorrow," Damien continued. "I suggest you focus on the woman who actually agreed to marry you, rather than the one who escaped your clutches. Because I assure you, Alpha Marcus, if you ever touch my queen again, your pack will need to find a new leader." The threat hung in the air, heavy with promise. Marcus's face cycled through emotions, anger, fear, humiliation, before settling on a mask of forced composure. "My apologies. It won't happen again." "No," Damien agreed. "It won't." Marcus retreated into the manor, his shoulders stiff with wounded pride. Eleanor waited until he was out of sight before letting out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. "Thank you," she said quietly. "You don't need to thank me for protecting what's mine." Damien turned her to face him, his expression softening as he cupped her cheek. "Are you all right?" "I am now." "Good, because there's something you should know." His eyes held hers, serious and knowing. "The curse that was placed on your bloodline. I've had scholars researching it since the day your wolf awakened. They've discovered something interesting." Eleanor's heart began to pound. What? The curse was specific. It wasn't just any dark magic. It was tied to Blackwood blood. Someone from this pack paid a witch to suppress your wolf, to ensure you would be rejected. His jaw tightened. And there's only one person with both the motive and the access to dark magic required for such a spell. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. Serena. "Serena," Damien confirmed. "She wanted Marcus for herself. She knew you were the obstacle. So she removed you, not through murder or scandal, but through the one thing that would make Marcus reject you himself." Eleanor felt the blood drain from her face. All those years of friendship, all those shared secrets and whispered confidences, and Serena had been planning her destruction from the beginning. "Does Marcus know?" "I doubt it. He's arrogant, but I don't believe he's that cruel. He genuinely thought you were wolfless." Damien's smile held no humour. "But there are others in this pack who have discovered the truth. Others who resent Serena's manipulation and would gladly see her punished." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that justice has a way of finding those who deserve it. And I'm saying that your old pack is more divided than it appears." He pressed a kiss to her forehead. "Now, shall we return to the dinner? I believe your former tormentors have some grovelling to do." The rest of the evening passed in a surreal haze. Word of Elena's transformation had spread through the pack like wildfire, and suddenly people who had once mocked her were falling over themselves to speak with her. The beta who had called her a disgrace now praised her grace and beauty. The elder who had wanted her cast out spoke of always knowing she was special. The young women who had whispered behind her back fought for the chance to compliment her gown. Eleanor accepted their flattery with cool politeness, seeing through every false smile and calculating compliment. They didn't respect her. They feared her, they feared Damien, and they wanted to position themselves favourably in case the balance of power ever shifted. But among the sycophants, she noticed something else. Clusters of pack members who watched Serena with cold eyes. Whispered conversations that stopped when the bride-to-be walked past. A current of resentment running beneath the surface of celebration. Others who have discovered the truth, Damien had said. As the dinner wound down and guests began to retire, Eleanor found herself standing at the edge of the great hall, watching Serena accept well wishes with a smile that grew more brittle by the minute. Tomorrow Serena would become Luna of the Blackwood pack. She would have everything she had schemed and cursed and betrayed to obtain. But looking at the fear in Serena's eyes every time their gazes met, Eleanor wondered if the victory would taste as sweet as her former friend had imagined. Back in their chambers, Eleanor sat at the vanity, removing her jewellery piece by piece. Damien watched her from the bed, still fully dressed, still radiating that dangerous energy that hadn't quite faded since his confrontation with Marcus. "You knew about Serena," she said quietly. "You knew before we came here." "I suspected. The research confirmed it only yesterday. And you didn't tell me." "Would it have changed your decision to attend?" Eleanor considered. "No, but I would have liked to be prepared." "You were prepared. You've been preparing for 3 years." Damien rose and moved behind her, meeting her eyes in the mirror. "And tomorrow, when she stands before the pack as Luna, She will do so knowing that you know her secret, that I know her secret, that her position is built on a foundation of lies and dark magic that could crumble at any moment. What are you planning? Damien. Nothing. His smile was sharp enough to cut. Yet. But the information is a weapon, and weapons are most effective when your enemy knows you possess them. Serena will spend the rest of her life looking over her shoulder, waiting for the blow that may or may not come. That is a punishment far worse than anything I could do to her tonight. Eleanor turned to face him, suddenly exhausted by the weight of revelations and confrontations. I'm tired. Then rest. He helped her to her feet, his hands gentle despite the violence that still simmered beneath his surface. Tomorrow will be a long day. She let him lead her to bed, let him hold her close as the moonlight streamed through the windows, and in the safety of his arms, she finally allowed herself to think about the secret she was still keeping. The baby. His baby. Their heir. Tomorrow she would watch Marcus marry the woman who had destroyed her life. She would accept the grovelling of those who had once tormented her. She would decide what kind of queen she wanted to be, merciful or merciless, forgiving or vengeful. But tonight, she simply rested her hand against her stomach and wondered what kind of mother she would become. If you're still listening to this story up to this point, why don't you subscribe to this channel to continue getting impactful daily stories like this? We would be most grateful if you can do that to help boost this video to reach everyone. Thank you. Chapter 3. The morning sun rose over Blackwood territory with deceptive beauty, painting the sky in shades of gold and rose that belied the darkness waiting to unfold. Eleanor stood at the window of their guest chambers, already dressed in a gown of midnight blue that made her look every inch the queen she had become. Her hand rested against her stomach, a habit she was developing, one she knew Damien had noticed but hadn't yet questioned. You didn't sleep. She turned to find him watching her from the bed, silver eyes missing nothing. Neither did you. I was keeping watch. He rose with the fluid grace that still caught her off guard, crossing to stand behind her. Something feels wrong today. My wolf has been restless since dawn. Eleanor nodded. She had felt it too, a heaviness in the air, a sense of impending catastrophe that made her silver wolf pace anxiously beneath her skin. Maybe we should leave. We've made our point. They've seen what I've become. Is that what you want? She considered the question carefully. Part of her wanted nothing more than to flee this place, to return to the safety of the Lycan kingdom and never look back. But another part, the part that had survived 3 years of exile, that had learned to fight instead of flee, knew that running would only leave wounds unhealed. No, she admitted. I want to see it through. Then we see it through. Damien pressed a kiss to her temple. Together. The ceremony was held in the Pack's sacred grove, an ancient circle of oaks that had witnessed countless unions over the centuries. White chairs lined the natural aisle, and garlands of silver flowers wound through the branches overhead. It was beautiful, Eleanor had to admit. Serena had always had excellent taste, at least in things that could be bought. She and Damien were escorted to the front row, a position of honor that felt more like a front row seat to her own complicated emotions. Pack members filled in behind them, their whispers a constant undercurrent of speculation and curiosity. Elena kept her expression serene, but beneath the surface her wolf prowled with increasing agitation. Something is wrong, her wolf insisted. Something is coming. I know, Elena replied silently. I feel it too. Marcus stood at the altar, resplendent in a formal black suit, but Eleanor could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his eyes kept darting to her position. Their confrontation last night had rattled him more than he wanted to admit. Good. Let him stand before his pack with doubts eating at his heart. Let him marry Serena knowing he had thrown away something precious for something poisonous. The music began, and all heads turned toward the back of the grove. Serena appeared at the entrance, a vision in white lace and silk. Her gown was exquisite, her veil cascading like a waterfall, her bouquet a perfect arrangement of white roses and silver ribbons. She looked like every bride's dream, beautiful, radiant, triumphant. But Eleanor saw what others didn't. The slight tremor in Serena's hands, the way her smile didn't quite reach her eyes, the desperate glances she kept shooting toward the front row, toward Elena, as if checking that her victim hadn't somehow discovered the truth. Too late, Elena thought with grim satisfaction. Far too late. Serena began her walk down the aisle, each step measured and graceful despite her obvious nerves. She was halfway to the altar when her eyes met Eleanor's, and she froze. Eleanor didn't move, didn't speak, didn't do anything except let her wolf rise to the surface. Not a full shift, not even close, but enough that anyone with supernatural sensitivity could see it. A shimmer of silver beneath her skin, an aura of ancient power that pulsed with every heartbeat. Her wolf, the wolf that should have been permanently suppressed, the wolf that Serena had paid a witch to destroy, was not only awake but magnificent. Serena's composure cracked. Her next step faltered, her heel catching on the edge of her train. She stumbled, arms pinwheeling for balance, and in that graceless moment her bouquet shifted, her sleeve rode up, and Elena saw it. A mark on her inner wrist, dark and twisted, like a brand burned into the skin. The witch's mark, the symbol of a dark bargain made and sealed in blood. Everything clicked into place with crystalline clarity. Eleanor had suspected since last night, since Damien had confirmed that Blackwood blood was tied to her curse. But seeing the proof, seeing the physical evidence of Serena's betrayal branded into her flesh, transformed suspicion into certainty. She did this to me, my best friend. She cursed my wolf, destroyed my engagement, ruined my life, and she did it deliberately, maliciously, for her own gain. Serena recovered her footing and hurried the rest of the way to the altar, but the damage was done. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Had they seen the mark? Did they understand what it meant? From the confused murmurs, most didn't, but some did. Elena could see pack members with magical training exchanging significant glances, their expressions shifting from curiosity to suspicion. The officiant began the ceremony, his words washing over Eleanor without meaning. She was too focused on Serena, on the way her former friend kept tugging at her sleeve, on the panic that grew more visible with each passing moment. She knows I saw, Eleanor realized. She knows I understand. Damien's hand found hers, his fingers intertwining with her own. Through their bond, she felt his awareness, his readiness, his dark anticipation. He was waiting for something. But what? The ceremony progressed through the traditional vows, the exchange of rings, the binding words that would unite Marcus and Serena as Alpha and Luna. Eleanor watched it all with detached interest, a spectator at a play she had once starred in. Then the officiant spoke the words she had been waiting for. If anyone present knows of any reason why these two should not be joined in union, speak now or forever hold your peace. The grove fell silent. Eleanor didn't speak. She didn't need to. Instead, she simply stood. The movement was slow, deliberate, impossible to ignore. Every eye in the grove turned toward her, including Marcus's, including Serena's, including the officiant's. Eleanor felt their attention like a physical weight, but she held herself straight, her chin high, her wolf blazing beneath her skin. Then she let her aura unfurl. It wasn't an attack. It wasn't even aggressive. It was simply a revelation, the full power of her silver wolf displayed for all to see. The ancient energy of her bloodline, suppressed for decades by a dark curse, now shone with blinding intensity. Pack members with any magical sensitivity gasped, recoiled, covered their eyes. They could feel it, the pure, untainted power of a wolf that should have been destroyed but had instead grown stronger in captivity. And they could feel something else, the wrongness emanating from Serena. Dark magic had a signature, a particular flavor that those with training could recognize. The curse that had bound Eleanor's wolf had left traces, threads of malevolent power that still clung to its caster. Now, with Eleanor's wolf free and strong and radiating truth, those threads became visible, a web of dark magic connecting Serena to the crime she had committed. "What is this?" Marcus demanded, his voice sharp with confusion and growing alarm. "Elena, what are you doing?" Elena didn't answer him. She didn't need to. The truth was speaking for itself. An elderly woman in the third row stood, her face pale with shock. "I can see it," she breathed. "The witch's mark, the curse threads, they lead directly to—" Her eyes found Serena. "To the bride." More voices joined in, pack members with magical training confirming what they were sensing. The web of dark magic, the forbidden spells, the clear connection between Serena and a curse that had destroyed an innocent woman's life. Serena's composure shattered. "It's not what you think." She backed away from the altar, her white gown suddenly looking less like a bridal dress and more like a shroud. "I never meant... I didn't want to..." "Didn't want to what?" Elena's voice carried across the grove, clear and cold. "Didn't want to curse my wolf into dormancy. Didn't want to ensure Marcus would reject me. Didn't want to steal my life, my future, my happiness. You were going to take everything from me," Serena's voice cracked, hysteria bleeding through. "You and Marcus, the perfect couple, the destined Luna. I loved him first. I knew him first. But your bloodline was more prestigious, your father's alliance more valuable, so I was pushed aside like I didn't matter." The confession hung in the air, damning and irrefutable. Marcus stared at his bride with dawning horror. "Serena, you cursed her. You made her appear wolfless." "I did what I had to do." Tears streamed down Serena's face, her beautiful facade crumbling to reveal the desperate, jealous woman beneath. "I did it for us, Marcus. For our future. Elena wasn't right for you. I knew it. I could see it. I just helped fate along." "Helped fate?" Marcus's voice rose to a roar. "You destroyed an innocent woman. You made me reject my own—" He stopped, the word dying in his throat. But Eleanor knew what he had been about to say. His own mate. The possibility had haunted him since her arrival, she realized. His wolf had been trying to tell him, had been stirring with recognition and longing. Marcus had dismissed it as regret, as attraction, as anything other than what it was. The pull of a mate bond that had been corrupted but never fully severed. "I didn't know," Marcus continued, his composure fracturing. "I didn't know what she had done, I swear it. If I had known—" But someone did know. The new voice came from the back of the grove, and the crowd parted to reveal Lady Constance Blackwood, Marcus's mother. She walked forward with the measured steps of someone approaching a gallows, her face a mask of cold resignation. "Mother?" Marcus's confusion deepened. "What are you talking about?" Lady Constance stopped at the front of the gathering, her eyes sweeping over the assembled pack with something like contempt. "I knew about the curse. I knew what Serena had done, and I helped cover it up." The grove erupted. Shouts of outrage, gasps of disbelief, accusations flying from every direction. Eleanor stood motionless in the storm, watching as the woman who had once smiled so sweetly at her engagement party revealed her true face. "Why?" Marcus's voice was barely a whisper. "Mother, why?" "Because Elena Vance was never good enough for my son." Lady Constance's lip curled with disdain. "A mid-ranking pack? A bloodline of no particular distinction? I had higher ambitions for the Blackwood name. When Serena came to me with her plan, I saw an opportunity. Remove the common-blooded girl, install a Luna I could control, and secure our pack's future through a more advantageous alliance." "Common-blooded," Eleanor laughed, and the sound was sharp enough to draw blood. "My bloodline carries the silver wolf, Lady Constance, the rarest and most powerful wolf in recorded history. Your more advantageous alliance would have tied your son to a schemer and a witch's puppet while throwing away something priceless." Lady Constance's composure flickered. "The silver wolf is a legend, a story to frighten children. And yet here I stand. Eleanor let her wolf surge forward again, let the silver light dance across her skin. Alive, awake, and very, very real. The pack members nearest to Lady Constance stepped away, putting distance between themselves and the woman who had helped orchestrate such a betrayal. Eleanor could see the politics shifting in real time, alliances fracturing, loyalties reconsidering. In attempting to secure power, Lady Constance had destroyed it. Marcus turned in a slow circle, looking from his mother to his bride to Eleanor to the crowd of pack members watching with hungry eyes. His face cycled through emotions too quickly to track: betrayal, horror, grief, rage. And beneath it all, his wolf was rising. Eleanor felt it before she saw it, the surge of uncontrolled power, the breaking of whatever restraint Marcus had been clinging to. His wolf had been caged for too long, suppressed by duty and expectation and lies, and now it was demanding freedom. Marcus, she kept her voice calm, steady. Marcus, you need to control yourself. Control? He laughed, and there was nothing human in the sound. Everything I knew was a lie. My mate, my mother, my bride, all of it built on deception and dark magic. And you want me to control myself? His bones began to crack. The shifting started before anyone could react, spine curving, limbs elongating, skin rippling with emerging fur. It was brutal and fast, the shift of an alpha pushed beyond his breaking point. Within seconds, where Marcus had stood, a massive grey wolf now crouched, teeth bared, eyes wild with mindless rage, and he was looking directly at Serena. Screams erupted as guests scrambled to escape. Human guests. Eleanor realised with horror that there were humans present, business associates and distant relatives without wolf blood. They had no defence against an enraged alpha, no supernatural speed or strength to protect them. Marcus lunged. Eleanor moved without thinking. Her own shift came faster than she had ever experienced, her silver wolf exploding from her human form with a surge of desperate power. She intercepted Marcus mid-leap, her smaller body colliding with his larger one, sending them both tumbling across the sacred grove. They crashed through chairs, scattering flowers and silk, their wolves snarling and snapping in a blur of silver and grey. Eleanor could feel his madness, the broken mate bond, the betrayal, the years of lies all converging into blind fury. He wasn't trying to fight her. He wasn't even aware she was there. He was simply trying to destroy everything in his path. Marcus. She projected the thought with all the force she could muster. Marcus, there are innocents here. Women and children. Humans who cannot defend themselves. But his wolf was beyond reason, beyond reach. 3 years of dormant instincts and suppressed emotions had finally broken free, and they would not be contained by words alone. Eleanor felt Damien's presence before she saw him, his ancient power flooding the grove, pressing down on everyone present with the weight of centuries. The Lycan King's authority was absolute, and even Marcus's maddened wolf hesitated under its crushing force. Enough. The word was quiet, but it carried the power of a thunderclap. Marcus's wolf whimpered, legs buckling, and Elena took the opportunity to pin him to the ground. Her jaws closed around his throat, not to harm but to dominate, to force submission. Stop, she commanded. Stop this now or I will end it myself. Something flickered in his wild eyes. Recognition, grief, shame. His wolf went limp beneath her, and she felt the madness begin to recede, leaving only devastating heartbreak in its wake. Around them the grove was chaos. Overturned chairs, scattered guests, at least one small fire where candles had toppled. Human guests were being escorted away by quick-thinking pack members, their memories already being fogged by those with the power to do so. Serena huddled behind the altar, sobbing. Lady Constance stood frozen where she had been, her face white with shock as she stared at the destruction her secrets had wrought. Eleanor shifted back to human form, uncaring of her nudity until Damien wrapped his coat around her shoulders. She looked at the people who had destroyed her life. The mother who had orchestrated it, the friend who had executed it, the lover who had rejected her because of it, and felt something unexpected. Pity. They had schemed and plotted and betrayed, all for a position that would have brought them nothing but misery. Serena would never have Marcus's true love. Lady Constance would never control a son who now knew her treachery. And Marcus would spend the rest of his life knowing he had thrown away something precious for something poisoned. What kind of queen do I want to be? The question she had been asking herself since they arrived finally had an answer. Eleanor turned to face the shattered remains of the wedding party. Her voice was calm when she spoke, carrying to every corner of the grove. I came here seeking closure. I found something worse, the truth of how thoroughly I was betrayed by people I once trusted with my life. She paused, letting the words sink in. But I am no longer the broken girl who fled this place in disgrace. I am queen of the Lycan kingdom. And a queen does not lower herself to petty vengeance. She looked at Lady Constance. Your pack will decide your fate. You conspired against an innocent woman for your own ambition. Let your own people judge whether that deserves their forgiveness or their condemnation. She looked at Serena. The witch's mark on your wrist is your own punishment. Every magical practitioner who sees it will know what you are. A woman who sold her soul for jealousy. You will never be trusted, never be respected, never be anything more than a cautionary tale whispered in dark corners. Finally, she looked at Marcus, still in wolf form, still lying where she had pinned him. And you, Alpha Marcus, will live with the knowledge of what you discarded. I was your mate. I could have been your Luna, your partner, your greatest ally. Instead, you believed lies over truth, chose cruelty over love, and lost everything that could have made you great. She stepped back, leaning into Damien's solid presence. We will take our leave now. I suggest you sort out the chaos you've created. The Lycan kingdom has no interest in the internal affairs of a pack that has proven itself so thoroughly unworthy of alliance. Damien's arm curved around her waist, protective and proud. Together they walked through the ruined grove, past the stunned pack members and the weeping bride and the shattered Alpha. No one tried to stop them. No one spoke. They had almost reached the edge of the trees when Eleanor felt it, a sharp cramp low in her abdomen, a warning signal that made her wolf howl with sudden fear. She stumbled, and Damien caught her instantly. Eleanor? What's wrong? She looked up at him, all her composure finally cracking, and spoke the words she had been hiding since yesterday. The baby, she whispered. Something's wrong with the baby. If you're still listening to this story up to this point, why don't you subscribe to this channel to continue getting impactful daily stories like this? We would be most grateful if you can do that to help boost this video to reach everyone. Thank you. Chapter 4. The world narrowed to a single point of terror. Eleanor pressed her hand against her abdomen, feeling another cramp ripple through her body. Not sharp enough to be agony, but persistent enough to be warning. Her wolf howled inside her, frantic with protective instinct, and she could feel the tiny spark of life within her, flickering like a candle in a storm. Elena. Damien's voice was steady, but she could feel his fear through their bond, a cold black thing that threatened to consume everything. Talk to me. What's happening? I'm pregnant, she gasped. I found out yesterday. I was going to tell you after the ceremony, but another cramp stole her breath. Something's wrong, Damien. I can feel it. The baby. His arms tightened around her, and she felt his power surge outward, a desperate call that summoned his guards within seconds. They materialized from the shadows of the grove, Lycan warriors in human form, their eyes blazing with readiness. Get our physician, Damien commanded, now, and secure this area. No one leaves until I say otherwise. 2 guards vanished instantly. The others formed a protective perimeter around them, their backs to their king and queen, their attention fixed on the chaos still unfolding in the wedding grove. Eleanor tried to focus through the fear. The cramps were easing slightly, the terrible urgency fading to a dull ache. Maybe it was stress. Maybe it was the shift. She had transformed without thinking, without considering what the violent change might do to the life growing inside her. Please, she prayed to whatever ancient powers might be listening, please let my baby be safe. You shifted. Damien's voice was rough with barely contained emotion. You put yourself between Marcus and those humans, and you shifted while carrying my child. I didn't know what else to do. He was going to kill someone. You should have let me handle it. There wasn't time. She looked up at him, seeing the war between anger and terror playing across his features. I'm sorry I didn't tell you about the pregnancy. I was afraid you would cancel our trip, and I know what you needed. He cut her off, but there was no heat in the words. You needed to face them, to prove to yourself that you had moved beyond what they did to you. His hand covered hers where it rested on her stomach. But this changes everything, Elena. You are carrying the heir to the Lycan throne. Every decision you make from this moment forward must account for that. Before she could respond, their royal physician appeared, a silver-haired woman named Helena who had served the Lycan court for over 2 centuries. She carried a leather medical bag and wore an expression of calm competence that immediately steadied Elena's racing heart. Your Majesty. Helena knelt beside them without ceremony. Tell me what you're experiencing. Eleanor described the cramps, the fear, the shift. Helena listened without interruption, her hands already moving to Eleanor's abdomen, her ancient magic probing gently at the life within. The examination felt like hours but lasted only minutes. When Helena finally sat back, her expression was thoughtful rather than grim. The baby is stable, she announced, and Elena nearly collapsed with relief. But it was a near thing. The shift put significant stress on the pregnancy. You're barely 6 weeks along, Your Majesty. The first trimester is always precarious, and violent transformations are extremely dangerous. Will she be all right? Damien demanded. Both of them. With rest and care, yes. But there can be no more shifting until she's much further along. And stress must be minimized. Helena's eyes swept over the chaotic grove, the scattered guests, the still prone form of Marcus. I would recommend returning to the palace immediately. Agreed. Damien lifted Eleanor in his arms as if she weighed nothing, ignoring her protests. We leave now. Wait. Eleanor clutched his shoulder, forcing him to pause. Serena, Lady Constance, we can't just leave without... I'm handling it. His voice was ice. But my first priority is you and our child. Everything else comes second. He carried her through the grove, past the stunned pack members, and the weeping bride and the humiliated Alpha. Eleanor caught glimpses of faces as they passed. Shock, fear, grudging respect, outright terror. The Lycan king, departing with his pregnant queen in his arms, sent a message no words could match. They had almost reached the waiting vehicles when Marcus's voice rang out behind them. Damien, wait! Eleanor felt Damien's entire body tense. He turned slowly, and she saw Marcus approaching on human legs, having shifted back at some point during the chaos. He was naked and bleeding from where Eleanor had pinned him, but his eyes were clear. The madness had passed, leaving only desperate determination. You dare address me? Damien's voice carried the weight of royal authority, and Marcus stumbled as if struck. After what your pack has done, after what your mother and your bride conspired to achieve? I know I have no right. Marcus dropped to his knees, head bowed. I know what I did to Eleanor is unforgivable, but please, there's more you need to know. Things Serena said, things I didn't understand until now. Speak quickly. My patience is at its end. Marcus raised his head, his expression tortured. The curse on Elena wasn't just about me. Serena was working with others. She mentioned them once when she thought I was asleep. A faction of rogues who wanted to ensure the Silver Wolf bloodline never reached the Lycan throne. I didn't know what she meant then, but now... His eyes found Elena. The rogues were trying to stop this. Your union. Your heir. The words hit Eleanor like a physical blow. Not just betrayal, but conspiracy. Not just jealousy, but political machination on a scale she had never imagined. How convenient, Damien said coldly, that you suddenly remember this information now when you're desperate to avoid the consequences of your pack's treachery. I swear on my wolf, I'm telling the truth, Marcus's voice cracked. I didn't know about the curse, didn't know about any of it until today. But I know I'm still responsible. I rejected her. I believed the lies. I broke something that should have been sacred. He looked at Eleanor again, and she saw tears tracking down his cheeks. Let me make it right. Let me help you find these rogues, destroy them before they can hurt Eleanor or your child. I'll give you everything, my life, my pack's allegiance, whatever you demand. Just give me the chance to atone for what I've done. Eleanor felt Damien's skepticism through their bond, his cold calculation weighing Marcus's words against his actions. But she also felt something else, a question directed at her. What do you want? She stared at the man who had destroyed her life with a handful of public words. Who had called her weak and worthless and cast her aside like garbage. Who had even yesterday begged her for a second chance while his bride waited inside. What did she want? Take me to the car, she said quietly, and bring Marcus with us. I'll hear what he has to say. But first, she met Damien's eyes. First, deal with Serena. She has answers we need. Damien nodded once, then turned to his guards. Bring the bride, and the mother. We'll conduct our interrogations somewhere more private than this chaos. They commandeered the manor's great hall, transforming the space where Eleanor had endured the rehearsal dinner into an impromptu court of judgment. Damien sat in the Alpha's chair, a deliberate insult to Marcus that no one commented on, with Elena settled beside him on a hastily arranged couch. Helena had insisted she recline. And for once, Elena didn't argue. Serena was dragged in first, still wearing her ruined wedding dress, mascara streaking down her face like black tears. She looked smaller somehow, diminished, as if the exposure of her secrets had physically shrunk her. The Lycan guards forced her to her knees before the makeshift throne. Damien regarded her with the detached interest of a scientist examining a particularly repulsive specimen. You have one chance to tell us everything, he said. The curse, the conspiracy, the rogues who recruited you. Hold nothing back, and your death will be quick. Lie to me, and I will personally ensure you spend the next century wishing for an end that never comes. Serena shuddered, her bravado completely gone. I'll tell you everything. Just please don't hurt me. That depends entirely on the quality of your information. Begin. The story that emerged was worse than Elena had imagined. Serena had been approached 5 years ago, before Eleanor and Marcus were even engaged. A woman had come to her, beautiful, cold, claiming to represent a faction that wanted to preserve the natural order of wolf society. The Silver Wolf bloodline, she said, was an abomination. If allowed to merge with Lycan royal blood, it would create something unprecedented, something that could shift the balance of power among all supernatural factions. They told me Elena was dangerous, Serena sobbed, that if she ever reached her full potential, she would destroy everything. They showed me visions, cities burning, packs slaughtered, wolves turning against wolves. They said the only way to prevent it was to ensure she never awakened, never fulfilled her destiny. So you cursed her. Eleanor's voice was flat. You paid a dark witch to bind my wolf, knowing it would ruin my life. I thought I was saving everyone. They were so convincing and they had proof and... Serena's voice broke. And I wanted Marcus. I won't pretend that wasn't part of it, but I really believed I was doing the right thing. Who were they? Damien demanded. Names, locations, everything. Serena provided what she knew, which was frustratingly incomplete. She had dealt primarily with the woman who recruited her, a rogue named Isadora who had disappeared years ago. There were others she knew, a network of rogues who believed the Silver Wolf bloodline threatened their vision for supernatural society. But she had been kept deliberately ignorant of the larger organization. They didn't trust me with much, she admitted. I was just a tool to them, a way to reach Eleanor without exposing themselves. And Lady Constance? Eleanor asked. How did she become involved? She found out about the curse after Marcus rejected you. I was careless, left evidence of my dealings with the witch. Constance confronted me and I thought she would expose everything. But instead, Serena laughed bitterly, instead she thanked me, said I had done what she never had the courage to do. She agreed to help cover it up in exchange for becoming the power behind Marcus's throne. Eleanor felt sick. Two women who had smiled at her, embraced her, wished her well, both plotting her destruction for their own petty reasons. It was almost impressive in a horrible way. Is there anything else? Damien's voice was ice. Any other conspiracies, betrayals, or attempts on my wife's life that you'd like to confess? Serena shook her head, her body shaking with exhausted sobs. That's everything. I swear it. I swear on everything I am. Damien nodded to his guards. Take her to the cells. We'll transport her to the Lycan kingdom for formal trial. He paused, his eyes cold. And bring in the mother. Lady Constance entered with more dignity than Serena, her spine straight despite the guards gripping her arms. She met Damien's gaze without flinching, and Elena felt a grudging respect for the woman's composure, even as she despised everything she represented. I assume Serena told you everything, Lady Constance said. I won't waste time repeating it. You knew about the curse. You helped conceal it. You allowed your son to reject his true mate because you considered her bloodline beneath your ambitions. Damien's voice was deceptively mild. Have I missed anything? Only that I was right to do it. The words fell into silence like stones into still water. Excuse me? Eleanor sat up despite Helena's warning look. Lady Constance turned to face her, and her eyes held nothing but cold conviction. Look at what you've become. Queen of the Lycan kingdom, carrier of the Silver Wolf, mother to an heir that will change the balance of power across our entire world. Do you think any of that would have happened if you had become Marcus's Luna? You would have been wasted on this pack, on this life, on my son's limited ambitions. You ruined my life, Elena said slowly. And you're claiming it was a favor? I removed you from a path that would have destroyed your potential. The rogues were wrong about you being dangerous. I knew that from the moment I saw your wolf shimmer beneath your skin. But they were right that you were destined for something greater than the Blackwood pack. Lady Constance smiled, and it was the smile of someone who had made peace with their choices long ago. I did you a service, Elena Vance. I just used unforgivable methods to do it. Your justifications are irrelevant. Damien rose from the Alpha's chair, his power filling the room until even Lady Constance's composure cracked. You conspired against a member of my court. You aided a dark magic curse against a woman who is now my queen. Whatever your reasons, whatever twisted logic you used to justify your actions, you will face Lycan justice for your crimes. He gestured to the guards. Take her. She joins Serena in the cells. Lady Constance didn't resist as they led her away, but she paused at the door to look back at Eleanor. Protect your child, she said quietly. The rogues won't stop just because Serena has been caught. They've been planning this for generations, and they're more powerful than you know. Whatever you think of me, don't underestimate the threat you're facing. Then she was gone, and Eleanor was left with the weight of her warning pressing down like a physical force. Marcus had been waiting outside the hall, guarded but not restrained. When Damien summoned him, he entered with the careful movements of a man approaching his own execution. Kneel. The command carried Damien's full royal authority. And Marcus dropped instantly, his head bowed, his entire body trembling with the effort of submission. An alpha forced to kneel by another alpha's power was humiliation enough. An alpha forced to kneel by the Lycan king in his own pack's territory before witnesses who had once called him their leader. That was destruction. Elena watched Marcus's shoulders shake and felt nothing but cold satisfaction. This was the man who had stood before 300 guests and called her worthless. Let him feel for one moment what she had felt for 3 years. "Your mother conspired against my queen," Damien said. "Your bride cursed my queen's wolf. Your pack's negligence allowed a rogue faction to operate within your borders. By rights, I could dissolve the Blackwood Pack entirely, execute you where you kneel, and absorb your territory into the Lycan kingdom." Marcus didn't respond. There was nothing to say. "But my queen has requested I hear your proposal." Damien's voice held no warmth. "So speak. Tell me why I should spare your miserable life." Marcus raised his head and Elena saw something she hadn't expected. Clarity. The desperation was still there, but beneath it lay a determination that hadn't existed before. "Because I can help you find the rogues," he said. "Serena told you what she knew, but there's more. I've been alpha of this territory for 5 years. I know every shadow, every hidden path, every secret that moves through these mountains. The rogues have been operating here without my knowledge, which means they have resources and connections I can trace. And in exchange? In exchange, I ask for the chance to redeem myself. Not forgiveness. I know I'll never deserve that. But the opportunity to prove that I'm not the man who rejected Elena in blind ignorance. To fight beside you against the faction that tried to destroy her. You would pledge your pack to the Lycan kingdom. I would pledge everything." Marcus's voice was raw. "My pack, my lands, my life. Whatever it takes to make this right." Damien turned to Eleanor, his expression unreadable. "This is your decision. He wronged you more than anyone else in this room. What would you have me do with him?" Eleanor looked at Marcus, really looked at him. She saw the man who had shattered her heart with public rejection, the alpha who had chosen lies over truth, the fool who had let jealousy and manipulation blind him to what was right in front of his face. But she also saw the man kneeling in his own great hall, stripped of pride and power, offering everything he had to atone for sins he could never truly erase. He wasn't the same person who had rejected her 3 years ago. Suffering had changed him, just as it had changed her. What kind of queen do I want to be? The answer crystallized in her mind, not a queen of vengeance, not a queen who destroyed everyone who had ever hurt her, but a queen of strength, one who could transform enemies into allies, who could find use even in those who had betrayed her. "Stand up, Marcus." He rose slowly, uncertainty flickering across his features. 3 years ago, you told me I was worthless, that I was weak, that I was unfit to be a Luna. She stepped closer, her silver wolf shimmering beneath her skin. You were wrong about all of it. But you were also a victim of manipulation, even if you were too blind to see it. She took a breath, feeling the weight of what she was about to say. I don't forgive you. I may never forgive you. But I'm willing to accept your help, under conditions. Marcus's eyes widened. Anything. You will swear formal allegiance to the Lycan throne, not as a conquered territory, but as a willing vassal. You will use every resource at your disposal to help us identify and destroy the rogue faction. And you will spend the rest of your life knowing that any mercy you receive comes not from your own merit, but from my choice to be better than the people who tried to destroy me. She held out her hand. Do you accept? Marcus stared at her palm for a long moment. Then he dropped to one knee again, not forced this time, but voluntary, and pressed his lips to her fingers in the ancient gesture of fealty. I accept, my queen, and I swear on my life I will prove worthy of the mercy you've shown me." Eleanor looked at Damien over Marcus's bowed head. Her mate's expression held something new. Not approval exactly, but respect. She had made her choice. She had shown mercy where vengeance would have been easier. She only hoped she wouldn't live to regret it. Later, in the privacy of their chambers, Eleanor lay with her head on Damien's chest, his heartbeat steady beneath her ear. Helena had examined her again and declared both mother and baby stable, but rest was essential. No more shifting, no more stress. Easier said than done, given what they had learned. "The rogues have been planning this for generations," Elena said quietly. Lady Constance was right about that much. They knew about the Silver Wolf bloodline. They knew what it could become if it merged with Lycan royal blood. They've been trying to prevent this, she touched her stomach, for longer than either of us has been alive. Which means they'll try again. Damien's arm tightened around her. The curse didn't work. Serena has been captured. They'll need a new approach. What kind of approach? I don't know yet, but I intend to find out. His voice hardened. These rogues have made a fatal mistake. They thought they could reach you, hurt you, destroy our future before it even began. They failed, and now they've revealed themselves as a threat to the Lycan kingdom. He shifted so he could meet her eyes. I will hunt them down, Elena. Every last one of them. I will tear their organization apart piece by piece, and when I find the leaders, I will make them regret ever hearing the name Volkov. The cold fury in his voice should have frightened her. Instead, it made her feel safe, protected, loved by someone who would burn the world to keep her and their child safe. "We'll do it together," she said. "You, me, and apparently Marcus and his pack." "You surprised me with that decision." "I surprised myself." She smiled slightly. "But I meant what I said. I don't want to be the kind of queen who destroys everyone who ever wronged her." Marcus was a tool, manipulated by Serena, lied to by his mother, used by rogues he never even knew existed. Punishing him doesn't serve justice. Using him does. And if he betrays us, then I'll kill him myself. Damien laughed softly, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "There's my queen, merciful but not naive, compassionate but not weak. I learned from the best." They lay in comfortable silence for a while, the weight of the day slowly releasing its grip. Outside, the pack was still in chaos, dealing with the fallout of the interrupted wedding, the arrest of their alpha's mother and bride, the sudden shift in political reality. But in this room, there was only peace. "We should return to the palace tomorrow," Damien said eventually. "Helena is right that you need rest, and I want you within our walls before the rogues have time to regroup." "Agreed. But there's something I need to do first." "What?" Eleanor thought about her father, the man who had disowned her publicly, who had watched her flee in disgrace and done nothing to help. He hadn't been at the wedding. She had looked for him, had wondered if he would be among those groveling for her attention. "I need to see my father, to tell him about the pregnancy, to see his face when he realizes what he gave up when he abandoned me." She paused. "And maybe to forgive him. I haven't decided yet." Damien nodded, understanding without needing explanation. "Then we'll visit him in the morning, before we leave. Thank you. You never need to thank me for supporting you." He pulled her closer, his hand settling protectively over her stomach. "You are my mate, my queen, the mother of my heir. Everything I have, everything I am, exists to protect you and our child." Eleanor closed her eyes, letting exhaustion finally claim her. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, confronting her father, returning to the palace, beginning the hunt for the rogues who threatened their future. But tonight, she was safe in her mate's arms, her baby secure within her womb, her enemies exposed and defeated. It wasn't the closure she had come for. It was something better. It was the beginning of a new chapter. If you're still listening to this story up to this point, why don't you subscribe to this channel to continue getting impactful daily stories like this? We would be most grateful if you can do that to help boost this video to reach everyone. Thank you. Chapter 5. The morning after the wedding that never was, Eleanor stood in the Blackwood Pack's council chamber and prepared to reshape their world. The room was packed with elders, beta wolves, and ranking pack members, all watching her with a mixture of fear and fascination. Marcus stood to the side, stripped of his ceremonial alpha garments, wearing simple clothes that made him look like any other wolf. His mother and former bride were already in transport to the Lycan kingdom, their fates sealed. Now it was time for his. Marcus Blackwood, Eleanor's voice carried through the silent chamber. 3 days ago, you were alpha of this pack. You commanded respect, loyalty, and obedience from every wolf in this territory. Today, you kneel before the Lycan throne, your authority stripped away by your own actions and the treachery you failed to prevent. Marcus dropped to his knees, head bowed. He had expected this. They all had. The crimes committed against me were not entirely of your making, Elena continued. You were manipulated by your bride, deceived by your mother, and used as a pawn by forces you never knew existed. For this reason, I will spare your life. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Some looked relieved, others seemed disappointed. But leadership is not just about intentions, it's about results. Under your watch, dark magic was practiced in your territory. Rogue agents operated freely within your borders. Your own household plotted against the Lycan crown, and you remained blind to all of it. Eleanor let the words sink in. Such blindness cannot be rewarded with continued authority. She turned to the assembled elders. Marcus Blackwood is hereby stripped of his alpha title. He will retain his wolf, his life, and his freedom, but he will hold no position of leadership within this pack. The Council of Elders will assume temporary governance until a worthy successor can be identified and confirmed by the Lycan throne. The announcement hit the room like a thunderclap. An alpha, stripped of title but not killed. It was virtually unprecedented. Most alphas who lost their positions lost their lives shortly after, unable to survive the shame. Eleanor was offering Marcus something far more complicated than death. She was offering him the chance to live with his failures. Furthermore, she continued, the Blackwood Pack will formalize its allegiance to the Lycan kingdom. This is not conquest. It is partnership. Your pack will retain its autonomy in internal matters, but you will answer to the Lycan throne in matters of security, justice, and inter-pack relations. In exchange, you will receive our protection against the rogue faction that has been operating in your territory. The eldest of the council members, a white-haired woman named Vera, stepped forward. And if we refuse this arrangement, then you face the rogues alone. Eleanor met her eyes without flinching. They have been using your territory as a base of operations for years. They have corrupted members of your pack, practiced forbidden magic within your borders, and plotted against the Lycan crown from the shadows of your mountains. Can you honestly say you're equipped to handle that threat without our help? Vera held her gaze for a long moment, then bowed her head. We accept your terms, Your Majesty, and we thank you for your mercy. Eleanor nodded, then turned back to Marcus. He hadn't moved from his kneeling position. His face a mask of controlled anguish. Rise, Marcus Blackwood. He stood slowly, his movements stiff with suppressed emotion. You offered your life in exchange for the chance to help destroy the rogues, Elena said. I'm holding you to that offer. You will work with our intelligence network to identify every contact, every hidden path, every secret that the rogues have used in your territory. You will prove your worth through action, not words. And perhaps in time, you will find some measure of redemption. She paused, letting the weight of her next words build. But understand this. You are no longer my equal. You are no longer even my peer. You are a disgraced alpha who survives at my pleasure. Every day you wake, every breath you take exists because I chose mercy over vengeance. Never forget that. Marcus's jaw tightened, but he bowed his head. I understand, Your Majesty, and I accept. Good. Eleanor turned away from him, dismissing him from her attention as completely as he had once dismissed her. Then we're finished here. Damien, I believe it's time we returned home. The journey back to the Lycan kingdom should have taken 6 hours. It took 12. The attack came as their convoy wound through the mountain pass that marked the border between Blackwood territory and Lycan lands. One moment the road was clear, the next wolves poured from the tree line like a flood of fur and fangs. Rogues, dozens of them. Elena's guards reacted instantly, shifting mid-leap to meet the assault, the air filled with snarls and the crack of bone as wolf met wolf in brutal combat. Through the reinforced windows of their vehicle, Eleanor watched the battle unfold with growing horror. Stay here. Damien was already moving toward the door. The guards will protect you while I... The roof caved in. A massive grey wolf tore through the reinforced metal like paper, landing between Eleanor and Damien with a spray of debris. Its eyes were wrong, filmed over with an unnatural white, like cataracts, but more sinister. Dark magic. Someone had enhanced these rogues with forbidden power. Damien's shift was instantaneous, his black wolf exploding from his human form to meet the attacker. They crashed together in a fury of teeth and claws, their battle destroying what remained of the vehicle's interior. Eleanor scrambled backward, her hand pressed protectively over her stomach. Helena's warnings echoed in her mind. No shifting. The baby was too vulnerable. The stress could destroy everything, but more rogues were pouring through the ruined roof, their white-filmed eyes fixed on her with terrible purpose. They weren't here for Damien. They weren't here for the guards. They were here for her baby. The silver wolf was never meant to reach the throne. Eleanor backed against the crumpled door, watching 3 enhanced rogues circle closer. Their movements were wrong, too coordinated, too synchronized. Whatever magic controlled them had stripped away individual thought, leaving only collective purpose. Kill the queen. Kill the heir. She had no weapon. No guards close enough to help. Damien was locked in combat with the largest rogue, and more were joining the fight every second. If she didn't act, she and her baby would die in this shattered vehicle on a mountain road, and everything she had survived would mean nothing. No. The word rose from somewhere deep inside her, from the silver wolf who had slumbered for 22 years and awakened to claim her destiny. Her wolf, who had defended her against Marcus's madness. Her wolf, who carried the ancient bloodline that rogues across the continent feared enough to murder for. I will not let them take my child. Elena shifted. The transformation was unlike anything she had experienced before. It wasn't the violent, desperate change she had forced in the wedding grove. This was something older, something that had been waiting inside her since birth, finally released. Silver light erupted from her skin, blinding the rogues, freezing them in their tracks. When it faded, a wolf stood where Eleanor had been. But not just any wolf. She was magnificent. Silver fur that seemed to glow from within, eyes that held the cold blue fire of ancient stars, a presence that pressed down on every wolf in the vicinity like a physical weight, demanding submission, commanding reverence, brooking no defiance. The silver wolf of legend, the bloodline that hadn't manifested in 500 years. And she was angry. Eleanor launched herself at the nearest rogue, her jaws closing around its throat before it could react. The dark magic controlling it shattered on contact with her silver light, and she felt the wolf beneath the corruption, confused, terrified, suddenly freed from possession. She released it, letting it flee into the trees, and turned to the next attacker. The battle became a blur of silver and shadow. Rogues fell before her, their enhanced strength no match for the ancient power flowing through her veins. Some she killed, the ones too far gone, too corrupted to save. Others she freed, her silver light burning away the dark magic like sunlight through fog. Through it all, she felt her baby's presence like a warm ember in her core. Not threatened by the shift, but strengthened by it, as if the child recognized its mother's power and drew comfort from it. "We're going to be fine," she thought fiercely. "Both of us." The last rogue fell, and Elena stood in the center of the carnage, her silver fur splattered with blood that wasn't her own. Around her, Damien's guards were finishing off the remaining attackers, but the fight was essentially over. The rogues had thrown everything at her, and she had survived. More than survived. She had triumphed. Damien appeared at her side, his black wolf pressing against her silver one in wordless relief. Through their bond, she felt his awe, his pride, his fierce protectiveness, and, beneath it all, a love so deep it seemed to reshape reality around them. "You were magnificent," his voice echoed through their connection. "I have never seen anything like that in 400 years of life. I had to protect our baby." She leaned into him, suddenly exhausted. "I couldn't let them take our child." "And you didn't." He nuzzled her neck, his presence wrapping around her like armor. "You didn't." They arrived at the Lycan palace as night fell, their damaged convoy limping through the gates to find the entire royal court assembled in the main courtyard. Word had spread of the attack, of course it had, and everyone wanted to see their queen return. Eleanor had shifted back to human form hours ago, wrapped in borrowed clothes, her hair tangled and her face pale with exhaustion. She wanted nothing more than to collapse into bed and sleep for a week. But Damien's hand on her arm told her that wasn't possible. "They need to see you," he murmured. "They need to know their queen survived, that she fought, that she won." "I look like death." "You look like a warrior." His eyes held hers, burning with intensity. "You look like my queen." She took a deep breath, squared her shoulders and stepped out of the vehicle. The crowd parted before her, whispers rippling through the assembled nobles and servants and guards. Eleanor walked through them with her head high, Damien at her side, refusing to show the weakness that tugged at her limbs. Let them see her strength. Let them remember this moment. They reached the raised platform at the center of the courtyard, where announcements were traditionally made. Damien guided her to stand beside him, then turned to face his people. "Today, our convoy was attacked by rogue forces," he announced, his voice carrying across the courtyard. "They came with dark magic and murderous intent. They came for your queen." A growl rose from the crowd, anger and protective fury rolling through the assembled wolves. "They failed," Damien's voice hardened. "Not because of my strength, not because of our guards, but because Queen Eleanor defended herself with a power none of us have witnessed in 500 years. He paused, letting the anticipation build. "Your queen carries the Silver Wolf bloodline. Today, she shifted into her true form and destroyed our enemies with nothing but the ancient magic in her veins." His hand found Eleanor's, squeezing gently. "And she did it while protecting something even more precious." Eleanor felt the moment coming, the revelation that would change everything. "Queen Eleanor is pregnant," Damien announced. "She carries the heir to the Lycan throne, the first silver-blooded heir in 500 years. The courtyard erupted. Cheers and howls and shouts of celebration filled the night air, a wave of joy that crashed over Eleanor and threatened to sweep her away. She saw faces she recognized, advisors, servants, nobles who had doubted her when she first arrived, all transformed by the news. They weren't just celebrating an heir, they were celebrating hope. Damien raised his hand for silence, and the crowd gradually quieted. "This joy comes with a warning," he said, his voice dropping to something cold and dangerous. "Today's attack proves that there are those who would destroy our future before it even begins. Rogue factions, dark magic practitioners, enemies who fear what the Silver Wolf bloodline represents." He paused, his gaze sweeping over the assembly. "Know this, anyone who threatens my queen will face extinction. Not just death, extinction." I will erase their names from history, their bloodlines from existence, their very memory from the world. This is not a threat. It is a promise. The silence that followed was absolute. No one doubted that the Lycan King meant every word. Now, Damien's tone softened slightly, let us celebrate. Tomorrow we hunt our enemies. Tonight, we honour our queen and the future she carries. Hours later, Eleanor sat alone in her chambers, finally allowed to rest. The celebration continued somewhere in the palace, but Helena had insisted she needed quiet, and Damien had reluctantly agreed to make excuses for her absence. She was staring at the fire, her hand resting on her stomach, when the servant entered with a silver tray. "A letter for you, Your Majesty." It arrived during the celebration. Elena frowned, taking the envelope. It bore no seal, no identifying marks, just her name written in an elegant hand she didn't recognize. "Who brought it?" "No one knows, Your Majesty. It was found on the refreshment table." A chill ran down Elena's spine. She dismissed the servant with a nod, waiting until the door closed before breaking the envelope's seal. Inside was a single sheet of paper, bearing a single sentence in that same elegant script. The silver wolf was never meant to save the throne. She was meant to destroy it. Elena read the words 3 times, feeling their weight settle into her bones. A threat? A prophecy? A warning from an enemy or a friend? She didn't know. But she knew what she felt looking at those words. Not fear, not uncertainty, not the trembling doubt that had once defined her existence. She felt resolve. The door opened and Damien entered, concern creasing his features when he saw her expression. "What is it? What's wrong?" Elena handed him the letter, watching his face darken as he read it. "They're trying to frighten you," he said, "to make you doubt yourself, your purpose, your place here." "I know." She took the letter back, folding it carefully. "And they've failed. Elena. 3 years ago, I was rejected, discarded, and cursed." She rose from her chair, moving to stand before him. "I was told I was worthless, wolfless, unfit to be a Luna. I believed it. I let their words define me, destroy me, drive me into exile." She placed her hand on his chest, feeling his heartbeat strong and steady beneath her palm. "But I'm not that woman anymore. I am queen of the Lycan kingdom. I carry a silver-blooded heir. I have faced dark magic and assassination attempts and the betrayal of everyone I once loved, and I am still standing." Her eyes met his, burning with quiet determination. "So, let them send their threats. Let them whisper their prophecies. Let them try to convince me that I'm meant for destruction instead of salvation. It doesn't matter what I was meant for. What matters is what I choose." Damien studied her face for a long moment, then smiled. A real smile, warm with pride and love and fierce admiration. "And what do you choose, my queen?" Eleanor looked at the letter in her hand, then at the fire blazing in the hearth. She crossed to the fireplace and held the paper over the flames, watching it catch and curl and blacken into ash. "I choose to fight," she said. "I choose to protect my family, my kingdom, my child. I choose to be exactly what they fear, not because some prophecy demands it, but because it's who I've become." She turned back to him, backlit by firelight, her hand resting on the life growing inside her. "I was rejected, discarded, and cursed. Now I'm queen, I'm pregnant, and I'm just getting started." Thank you for watching this video. Subscribe. Like and share this video to continue listening to this type of story daily, and also to appreciate this community too. I would like to hear your wonderful opinion about this story. Please comment below.